I have a million questions that I'm asked all the time about being an entrepreneur. What's it like, and is it scary being an entrepreneur, and how did you get started? And there's a million questions people want to ask you. And I thought to myself, bang, one day, wouldn't it be great to have an entrepreneur's masterclass where I can bring some of these unbelievable people, people like we read about them and we read their stories. They're legendary, but we only see them on film and we have visualizations of what they are. But actually to sit down with them and talk to them, I thought, wouldn't that be a wonderful way to learn? Nothing's new. I remember watching the old actor classes several years ago, how they visualized and how they created their careers and how they just kept getting better and better. And I thought to myself at that time, what a wonderful way for a young person to learn the craft directly from the old guys. I thought it was a very elegant way to teach. But today's guest is Renie Cavallari. I've known Renie for many years, and I'm really looking forward to this interview. Renie is a wonderful, wonderful role model, and for so many reasons. And when I wanted Renie to participate in the class today, I wondered how best to introduce her. Renie is special. Lots of people are special, but Renie is special. And I thought what words would best explain how I feel about Renie. Let me tell you what's going to happen to you today. She's going to excite you. She's going to inspire you. She's going to motivate you. And most of all, she's going to engage you. And you're going to learn an awful lot. So I really ask you to listen and observe. Now, to conduct the interview, I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Tim Rishalti. Tim, thanks for facilitating today. Over to you. And like all of you, I'm going to sit back, I'm going to listen, and I'm going to learn.
And I, too, am really looking forward to this. Renie's background is exceptional. Not only is she a thought leader, she's an author, she's a keynote speaker. She comes into organizations to help, as you mentioned earlier, Peter, to inspire people, to motivate people, to align people. She does that with her own teams of individuals carrying out the work of her businesses that she runs. And Renie, I'm going to turn it over to you immediately and simply ask, can you share a bit of your background and specifically the story about how you got to where you are today? And from there, I think we'll have a great launching pad as to getting into the other aspects of the interview.
In terms of my background, I'm a working class kid from Philly. I grew up with two teachers who were really, they were wildly in love with each other, and they loved to explore. They danced, they sang, they were really well read, and they engaged us in conversations that really opened our minds. I kind of chuckle because a few years ago, I took my daughter to the Women's March in Phoenix, and she was exhilarated by it. And I said, yeah, this is about my 20th march. I grew up marching and standing for things that were of value to me. And my parents really were the beginning of that sense of what matters most to you and how can you contribute. And they also were campers because we didn't have much money, and yet they had wanderlust. And so we would camp throughout the summer, and we would explore Canada. We would explore all over the United States. And we had great adventures together. And that really triggered my curiosity about everything. And I think that's one of the cool things, that if you're lucky enough to have curiosity is a natural way in your life, that it opens things up that you sometimes wouldn't have noticed. And so I was just blessed. They were, believers in me from the very beginning, and have always been. I remember my father when I first started Aspire 25 years ago, and I said, I'm gonna start my own firm. And of course, I didn't know what I was going to do, how I was going to get it up and moving, and all these things that really could be stressful. And my father gave me the greatest gift, and it was, boy, I so wish I had money, because if I did, I'd invest in your company. And, what else do you need? That's a believer. So, and, I did the traditional corporate climb. I went to, school at FSU, Florida State, and worked hard at, my grades and looking for opportunities. I wasn't blessed with relationships that could open doors. I had to really be tenacious and find ways to experience things that would, broaden my horizons, bring out what might be my strengths. and try lots of things on. And through my corporate climb, I really learned a lot of different things about the world and how people worked. And then eventually I had the opportunity to start Aspire.
You mentioned as you were growing up, your parents really helped you understand what matters most. And, it leads to the natural question, what matters most?
I mean, what matters most? If I synthesize it down, I think it's love matters most. So I look at love as a foundation for my life and a foundation for my firm, a foundation for the people I work beside. I have a love for the mentors along the way who taught me. I have a love for the craft I actually get to do and get paid for. I have a love for the freedom that this company and the people I work beside, whether they're clients or teammates or mentors, et cetera, that's the common thing for me. And that love really has allowed me to be the kind of parent that I want to be. It's really my fallback position when I'm finding myself in places that are not emotionally healthy. I'm worried. I feel judgment. I don't know what I should do. Those anxious times. Usually what grounds me is love. And it's because I can reach out to people and they understand me. And when you have love, what you gain in return is that people love you for who you are. And that is like, honestly, I believe like that's fertilizer to a plant. There's sun and there's rain and there's all these things. But when you can put that special something on a plant, hopefully it's organic. When you can do that, then things grow in ways that I certainly, wouldn't have told you I would have been able to grow it.
You talked about the corporate climb, and at some point, that success either enabled Aspire to come about, or you always had an inkling that you were going to venture out on your own. I'd love to learn a little bit more about kind of the entrepreneurial mindset. Do you think that's something that was always ingrained in you? Or did you get to a point in your corporate climb that you recognized that I have to venture out on my own for some reason? Tell us a little bit about the decision to start Aspire.
I wish I could say, well, I was just born to be an entrepreneur. Like I woke up and that's what I want to be. And it wasn't that. First of all, I had amazing mentors. And one of them was just a crazy entrepreneur. And he opened doors because he saw my potential. He believed in me. And, I was working on things that were, junk bonds and Wall Street and working on portfolios. I was in no way, shape, or form qualified to be doing what I was doing. But I was working for this entrepreneur who saw everything as an opportunity, who saw things and knew like that makes sense to me. So I think I was blessed early on in my career by hanging out with entrepreneurs. But that still wasn't how I became one. When I was around 26, my first thought about being an entrepreneur was my girlfriend was having a baby. And of course, she wanted diapers as part of her gift. For her baby shower. And we got into this discussion about, Pampers and landfills. And this was a long time ago, 25, it was a long time ago. And so it was kind of ahead of its time. And myself and the two of my girlfriends, we came up with this diaper concept. And it was, I don't know if you recall, Tim, Snap-on Tools, but Snap-on Tools was, these big trucks and they would drive into gas stations and mechanics, and that's how people would buy tools. And so we took the same concept and built out an entire business plan. And one of my girlfriends was a great operator. I happened to be a brand strategist and, sales marketing. And then another person was finance. And we just got kind of lucky that the three of us had these three different strengths. And we built out this business plan, and it was of that concept. And it was really innovative. I mean, I learned about, to clean a diaper. There were 19 steps to clean a diaper from a legal standpoint. Like, it's a diaper. And just, how do we create healthy food and have it on the truck? So we just pull up and we make the lives of of families easier. Like that was really invigorating. And then for various reasons, it didn't come together. And it was 10 years later before I started Aspire. And honestly, it was a difficult situation that made me step back. And a friend of mine said to me, when are you going to do it? And I was like, this was a dinner. And I'm like, do what? And she's like, if you're too afraid to go off on your own, I'll be your partner. And I remember thinking, hell, I don't want a partner. Like I just watched the dynamics of partners in my history of my career. I maybe I should go off and do it. But it was really the catalyst was I was in a situation where I had cut a deal with a major company and with the CEO. And after the deal was done, 2 weeks later, he called up and felt that we needed to change my title because it was uncomfortable for men for me to have an SVP title and to change my financial package. And it was just like, this doesn't align with my values. First, we've made a commitment. And the second thing is like, how much clearer does the universe have to get for you, Renie? Like, this is crossing the line. And that became my motivator to say, I want to work with people that I love. I want to do things that I love. And I want to decrease this feeling of things that, in this case, lacked respect. And then more importantly, lacked a sense of purpose for me. In my opinion, how I look at being a woman is it's a gift because it allows, me to it allows a certain freedom. I just see it that way. So, in the corporate climb and in my life, have I experienced sexism? Absolutely. Hashtag me too, of course. These things were real. Did I have to work harder than my male counterparts? Yes. Did I not get invited to golf games on the weekend with the C's while somebody who works for me who did play golf get invited? All of that is true. And I just don't focus on it. What you focus on comes true, and what you focus on takes over your mind. And for me, I just ignore it. I don't let it, I see it as, someone, doesn't respect me for that reason, then, who you hang with is who you become. I don't have any, they're just not useful to me in that sense. This is their belief. And so, to me, I look at myself as a human and I look at other people as a human. Now, do I think sexism and do I think that people get overlooked, and have I had these experiences without having any value around them? Yeah, I hold them as part of the fabric that made me who I am. I just don't let them rule my mind. And I also think that, when I was growing up in corporate America, people didn't expect much of me because I was a woman. And so they never saw me coming. And by the time they saw me, they were looking at my back. And so it's like, take a look at that. And I just didn't, my imprint was to be really fantastic at whatever I was committed to doing. And it had nothing to do with male or female for me.
You talked about the mentors, but I'm wondering if there were some other, pivotal points, certainly pivotal points where people come in after a deal's cut. Hey, now we're going to change the deal on you. Those are pivotal points, and they're somewhat negative. They're very negative. That really put you in a position to stand up and move forward in a certain way. What were some of the other pivotal points throughout the last 25 years or so of Aspire that it's like, wow, these are really important dates, times, decisions that you had to make? And what were some of those points that further identify some of the values and character that you take on every day?
Well, one is I remember I was trying to make a decision on something that wasn't very big, wasn't very significant decision. And I was stuck in the noise of it. And a friend of mine said to me, I want to introduce you to someone. She's an amazing coach. And it was my first experience with a really sound coach that was zeroing in and aligned with me. And it really fed me. And so, because I kept learning and I kept having to be responsible and accountable to the commitments I was making. And so I think getting a coach for me, though it happened again in an accidental kind of way to solve this one little business problem, which in hindsight was really ridiculously simple. And yet it became something that certainly gave me the power of being able to focus and to stand for what I believed in. And it kind of always brought me back to that. So I definitely say having a coach, certainly having mentors, people that I can think with and I can be vulnerable with without an agenda, without anything like that. So I know another pivotal moment for me was when I had my daughter, Bella. And it was, first of all, I love being pregnant. The idea of this ongoing communication before she even arrived was just exhilarating. And I had a baby when I was, 39 years old, 39 years old, something, like people really question, like, when are you having a family and why didn't you get married early? And what's wrong with you, And all I can remember is thinking, all I do is buy everyone gifts. You should send me gifts. And some of you, I've been to 2 and 3 rounds of gifts, So, but with Bella, a major shift for me was really understanding that my journey was bigger than the company. And even though I loved the work and it was bigger than just seeing the world, now it was about exploring it all with her. And it was about really establishing boundaries. One of the gifts of being older as a parent is I think you're already humbled through the experience. You don't have any hallucinations about how things should be. You have people that ooh, they do a good job parenting. I respect that. And so, again, you have mentors and people to go to help you bring up, singularly, the most important job you could ever have, or I could ever have. So Bella also gave me clarity around the boundaries that I was going to establish. And I'm divorced. And so when I had Bella with me, I did not travel. I didn't care what speech it was, in what country it was. It didn't matter. And people came to actually respect that, where they're like, hey, we're thinking about doing something. Can you be available at this time? And then her dad and I have a beautiful relationship. We worked hard to be great parents together. And so we worked on, can we free up, et cetera. More importantly is that there were little nuances that, I was home by 6. I did not get on the phone. I cooked dinner. We sat down together. I made breakfast every single morning. It was our time together. We explored together. She traveled with me. I've been to over 60 countries, and my daughter at 19 has been to at least 30, I would suspect. So like the wanderlust that I experienced with my parents, the chance to even march, and the march is more about being thought provoking, like what matters to you and what will you stand for. And I think Bella really was a pivotal time for me in it not just being a parent, being a better human being was pivotal. And then I think throughout the journey, we're blessed with a 96% retention of our clients year over year for 25 years. And I have to tell you that I think our clients constantly challenge us and make us better. And those little pivots along the way just keep enhancing my world. I
listened to your story unfold. Mentorship has been a real part of it all the way through. You sought out different people, and years and years ago, there was did you ever read Napoleon Hill's book, The Think and Grow Rich? Have you read that book?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and the mastermind principle, how he always seeks, other people to the areas that he thinks he doesn't have filled perfectly. He goes out to other people to fill those spots. And you've done that. Your life to me is operating on a mastermind principle. And it seems to me when you come up to challenges, you seek out the masterminds, the new ones, to fill those new challenges. They're not the first ones you had when you started, maybe not the same ones you need now. And you've done that. To me, it looks like you've done it intuitively. And I'd like to ask you, is it intuitive or is it strategic? And if it's not strategic, it'd be neat to make it strategic.
Technically, I'm a strategist. And so I would love to say, oh, it's strategic. And it's not. It is totally, or it was totally intuitive. It became a learned behavior, Peter, because where I made mistakes, it was usually because maybe, like I look, even when I'm hiring someone, I insist you must be bringing something that I don't have, or the company doesn't have. Like that's the requirement. So I think it's really just a smart way to look at your life and to reach out. And I do think, growing up, as a working class kid, you're scrapey, like you have to get out there and find your resources. And so resource, navigation was really the motivation of that versus, my great strategic strength. I would say, no. And yes, it is interesting. I think now it might be more of a process. Like as the economy went into this fall, I immediately moved into my resilience plan, the strategy around that. Just, what are people doing, reading, learning? I'm pretty fanatical about endless learning, like what is happening, and not learning in my niche. I usually am interested in what I don't know, not what I do know.
As an entrepreneur, we play to win. And it's interesting. And I've often likened it like life is sort of, you get handed a deck of cards. And imagine like you're a company now, Aspire. You've picked your niche. And so now you're going to take on all the other people who have the same niche. You're entering into competition with them and you're going to win. So how are you going to win is you're going to need you need the best cards. If you had all aces, you'd be great. But you look at yourself and you say, like, you've got a huge marketing ace. Whether you've got a due diligence ace, I don't know that. But if you were only 10, let's say you had ace in marketing, 10 in due diligence, all the different legal 3, you look at that, you surrounded yourself, and what you do, surround yourself, that you've got the 4 aces on that team of yours, and you'll win. And if the company had that attitude, which you've sort of you have done it intuitively, but I think a bit of strategy is going in it now too. So I'm excited to see that.
I look at competition a little differently than I think I'm gonna win over them. I look at competition like I just found someone on the internet about 2 weeks ago that's doing something similar than us. But I look at it, it's like, what can I learn from them? How can I that's smart. How they're communicating is smarter than how we're communicating. So to me, again, going back to what you said, I look around to model and what can I learn? And then how can I apply it? How can I take action and execute against it? So for me, and this is just me, the competition is within. So the competition is for me to get better, for Aspire to be better, for us to touch more lives, which is our mission. That's what turns me on. And when we lose a deal, which, generally speaking, I don't like that, but I reflect on it in a very, very deep way. I probably reflect on the loss more than I reflect on the win, which maybe I should give a little more emphasis to. I don't like it when people take our stuff. So we spend a lot in R&D. We spend a lot in really innovating. We've been recognized for it. It's part of our culture. It's a part of how we look at things. Like, how are we helping people and companies evolve? So I don't like it when someone writes something and I can tell that they've taken it from Aspire. That does tick me off. I will say, okay, I'm burying them. But other than that, I just don't. My energy comes from what we can become, not, oh my gosh, we're not as good as them. Like that does not fill me at all. That actually I think that decreases your power because you're more in fear, and fear sucks power. We are in what we call our give strategy. We are giving everywhere we can so that we can help them be successful, because we know that our client's success is our success. So that is in the short term where we have a lot of focus and energy. The company is in big growth. And so our growth is certainly in our leadership work, and also in how we, train people in this new, remote virtual environment. We've been learning a lot about that. I never considered myself a technology, person, and boy, have I become a technology person, though I don't think I should quit my day job on that. I think the other big thing for me, I've started a new book called Head Trash, The Leading Killer of Human Potential, back in August. And it is in the final editing process. And I'm very excited about it. It's not ironic, I guess, that, here we are in a world where head trash is really going to limit people's potential. And so writing this book has been really something that I have loved writing. It's a very personal journey about my own head trash, as well as that the vulnerability of what head trash does, and how most of it's, it's just made up, and that it limits us. And when it limits us, we lose our power and we lose what's possible. And we were all put on the planet for something really big, in my opinion. And the head trash is really the next thing for me. Like, we're working on this, and it is a fabulous time. The book's, going to come out in August, and I'm very proud of it. And that is hard for me to say, because I've written 4 or 5 books, and I would say, like, I never felt like, okay, this is really the one. And I feel that, and I say that humbly. I just feel like this is something that's important for right now. I would tell you, our mission, as I mentioned before, is to awaken the potential of people, and hence organizations. And so that's all about give, right? It's all about, how do we find what's working? How do we find what's good? How do we ensure that people are playing to their strengths? All of that is really at the foundation of the company. So, of course, we are clear on our values, and we interview against them. And our values are kind of interesting, because, like, one of our values, they're a believer. So they believe. And another one of our values is actually intensity, because we are intense people and we want people to succeed. So we want them to understand those values. Of course, we have a value associated with, compassion. And because when you are working with people, you're basically affecting change. Like, no one hires my firm because they want things to be the same. Like, no one calls up and says, hey, I'd like to talk about the status quo with you. So when you're, really in the business of change and optimizing performance, which is kind of the synthesized down corporate way of looking at it, you have to have people that get the power of that, and also that understand how hard that is for other people to do. And so when you create environments that are collaborative, when you create environments where there's a sense of contribution, right? We have these 6 pillars that we believe are fundamental to leadership. Pillar 1 is connection, the ability to create rapport and ultimately trust. Pillar 2 is clean communication, different than clear. Clean communication is saying things in a way that other people can actually have them, not just being clear about them, and making sure that you say what needs to be said, even if you don't want to say it. And pillar 3 is compassion, and that sense of love and empathy. And then 4 is standing for the higher purpose of the organization. So the organizations we work for, and then a person's inner higher purpose. Like, one of the questions I ask people when I interview them is, so tell me what you were put on this planet to do. Like, tell me about you in this kind of more rich way than, because I literally say, I haven't read your resume. I figure if you got to me, your resume is looking pretty good. I want to know you, because that's our secret sauce. And then pillar five, is participation, because when we participate, we engage, and when we engage, all kinds of things start to open up. Right? We have agility when we're engaged. We gain a lot of other beautiful elements, and we have to create environments for participation. And then pillar 6 is creating environments of 100% responsibility. And that drives accountability. When you give people responsibility, they will be accountable, or they'll naturally leave. And so we really actually work on those 6, and we studied those for years and years and years. We have, as I mentioned, a lot of R&D. I was completely enamored with the book Good to Great, and yet I looked at it and said, how does a small or medium-sized business do good to great? Because all the examples were big companies with lots of resources. And really, when I synthesize the good to great down, it's all about leadership. And when I synthesize all really wonderfully successful situations, parenting, whether it's friendship, whether it's your business itself, there is an element of leadership. And so we were blessed with we received a huge contract in building out service culture for this little company called Best Western International, and with over 4,000 assets. And they had some really serious work they wanted to do. David Kong, their CEO, who is still their CEO and a very dear friend and mentor to me, we had to figure out, okay, how do we shift 4,000 units technically? And it was all about culture. It's culture first. It's mindset first. And so we zeroed in on how will we get these leaders to lead? Because if we can get them to lead, the rest is easy to do. And, David and his team have taken, Best Western to an unbelievable success in the last 10 years, like crazy successful. And I think it was, in that curiosity of how do we solve this business problem, and then synthesizing it very simply into it's about leaders. Then what is it that leaders can do that can make them great, from good to great? Doing all that research and study, really important work actually takes time. It takes effort. And sometimes you put a lot of effort into something. I have hundreds of examples of putting effort in and going, well, that's not worth any of the time that I spent against it, right? So I'm telling you the beautiful story here. And then those 6 pillars, I would tell you, we have integrated those 6 pillars into thousands of organizations and hundreds of thousands of people. And those pillars connect people. And I think that's at the heart of why we have a high retention of our clients, because people feel connected. And even when we make mistakes, they know they can count on us, because when we're connected, we feel a sense of accountability, a sense of I can count on you. And then we receive that back. So culture, it's absolutely, some things can be taught, but if people don't have, my company, if they don't have certain things, they won't be successful. And, that doesn't mean they're not successful. It just means that they don't fit in.
What advice would you have for entrepreneurs or even leaders that are still climbing the corporate ladder? What advice do you have for them relative to mindset? Thinking about that glass either being half full or half empty right now, relative to knowing its importance in terms of the longer term success.
Beliefs that it's inherent. And I think I got it from my lacrosse coach early on. And it was, nothing positive comes from negativity. And so, it's not like I don't have negative thoughts or don't have fears or don't, that I don't have head trash. We have an emotional brain, and there's 2 sides to it. There's the connecting side of the emotional brain and the disconnecting side of the emotional brain. Fear lives in the disconnecting side of the brain. Problems live in the disconnecting side of the brain. Actually ill health, the inability to breathe, the anxiety, all of that is in the disconnected side of the brain. And I can simply say that when you learn how to move from the disconnected side of the brain to the connected side, where not only is breathing easier, solutions and resolution is in the connecting side of the brain. And a sense of innovation, ideas, positivity, your fuel is on that side of the brain. So to me, it's first about that. You have to read things that inspire you. You have to be careful of how much media you're taking in, and where are you getting your information from? Because is it enlightening you, or is it sucking your energy? Like, I just don't watch the news much at all because it makes me nuts. And like, what's my upside for that? Where it doesn't mean that I'm not informed. I just have decided I think I need to get my information from other sources. I look at Facebook and say, Facebook is totally about a social communication. I do not, I don't read anything that is on there that is considered news, because there is no process of clarity of that value. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't want other opinions. So, I have friends, that have very different views than me. And I love that because it enhances me. So I think with mindset, it's like, what are you putting in? I also think your mind does have a lot to do with, do you get good sleep? What kind of fuel do you put in your body? How do you take care of your body? When you're feeling down, you tend not to exercise. Like going for a walk seems like to be a big deal. So I have little things that I do that, like today, I knew I really needed to focus and get prepared. So I didn't do my normal workout this morning. I didn't do my yoga, but I always start my day with meditation because it puts me in the right mindset. And then I journal, and I have a very simple journal process. It allows me to focus in on what I'm grateful for, because it puts me in the right mindset. So it's not that I don't have the same challenges that I ended yesterday with. It's how am I going to move into them? And then what are my triggers? Like I have my little Fitbit watch that, so today my goal was 15,000 steps because I knew the rest of the day wasn't going to work. So I look at things a little more granularly on a day-to-day basis to help me get in the right mindset. And mindset takes effort because sometimes, I'm disappointed with what's happening with my company, or we've made a mistake, or I haven't been the parent I wished I had the conversation the wrong way. And I look at those things and say, no problem, I can clean that up. I'm sorry is a very simple process. Apologizing, it actually brings you a sense of relief and gives gratitude and enhances a relationship. This belief that everything should be, our relationship should be without conflict is completely insane. I can't even be with myself without conflict. It's impossible. So with mindset, now, for those who are looking at their business from an entrepreneurial standpoint, I think after the mindset, and by the way, a great leader during this time, I think in general, I zero in on three things. I keep things very simple. It's about clarity. It's about courage. It's about compassion. And so I keep people informed because I think it decreases their fear. And that decreasing of their fear is a compassion, an effort to ensure compassion for people. But clarity, I think, is so important right now for people to navigate their way out. And of course, as a strategist, clarity is kind of a big deal. But I look at it from a standpoint of, don't look at your business through the same lens. This is a great silver lining. There's in the movie Apollo 13, Ed Harris is in they've just lost the moon, right? The mission has changed. And he says this most profound statement, and it is, what works, find out what works in the ship. And he gets everyone very clear on what do we have to work with and how do we leverage that. So to me, it's about, one of the things I love about, having peers that are curious is that I can say, hey, I'm looking at this, and, a Peter or some reader or some people around me get excited and contribute. And it's just, it opens up your lens, and that opens up your mind to what's possible. And that helps with mindset. I also think collaboration. And then probably, one of the gifts that I might be a speaker, and yet I listen because I'm curious about what other people think and what other people know. And this is a great time to listen and a great time to learn. Like, use this time. So yes, if you've lost your job, which is horrible in so many ways, and yet you have this opening to learn more than I can right now. You have an opportunity to listen more and to really think about, well, what do I want to do next? And what might be the possibilities that, are intriguing to me? And then, it always comes down to execution. People say, well, I'm lucky. And I get that. Really, luck to me is a derivative of what you did to get that luck, and execution is it's critical because nothing gets done without it. It's hard work. It's hard. I am not at my best. It's because I have let my routine go. I have let the patterns that support the life I want to live. And so when you don't have that routine, I think that's where personal resentment brews. So for me, I need space in the morning. And, my mom, she was a coffee drinker. And we all used to have a joke that in the morning, she would read the paper and drink her coffee and don't talk to her. Because if you did, the answer was going to be no. Right. So, and I never thought that I was like that until, in self-reflection and awareness. So for me, it is about, I get up, I put my contact lenses on, I actually get up, I meditate. Then I put my contact lenses in so that I can journal. It is just clockwork for me. And, you're right. In Head Trash, I actually address that the rest of the routine is really personal for people because some people just, they just get so much energy from weights and lifting and going to the gym or going to the gym and being around people. I like to go to the gym and have no one around me. I get my energy through the focus and the work and feeling like I'm productive in it. So I think it's really important to make sure that your routine reflects the things you love. A friend of mine once told me, you love to hike. So why do you keep going to the gym and walking on the treadmill? You hate the treadmill. You find it boring. And then you feel guilty when you don't go. And I was like, that's brilliant, right? So it depends where I am. I'm here at Laguna Beach. And so there is a beach and I go out there and I sit on my deck and I look at the sea and I really do feel grateful. And there's a gym. And so I go down and I get on the bike and I have this little trick because I don't love the bike, but the bike loves me. It's good for me because it gets at certain things that I'm not a cardio person. When I was running with a lacrosse stick in my hand, I could run for hours. When the coach said, take, 10 laps, because you used to have to take a lap if you swore, and I had a little problem. So I was in very good shape. But those 10 laps would kill me. Same amount of time, same activity, but my mind was like, when will this end? When will this end? So my little trick on the bike is I decide what on Netflix I really want to watch, and I only let myself watch it when I'm on the bike. Right. So if it's getting good, I'm on the bike every day. So those are the little kind of silly things that I do, and then I always organize my day the night before. And Sundays are my day to really get it together in every aspect of my life, including my work. I just feel like our company right now, we're virtual. We're now, working, together, but we're in a big warehouse. So, we're obviously very respectful of the realities right now. But, we have a stand-up meeting and it's a simple thing. And it's, we added something, Peter. It's a word of the day. So what's your word of the day, which helps with mindset? And that came from actually Peter. And it has been so powerful for me to make sure that I stay on my word of the day. It's kind of like a little accountability thing when I'm slipping. So we share our word of the day. We share anything we didn't deliver on that we were supposed to yesterday. And we share our deliverables for today. And that just keeps us all focused. I got to tell you, we're more productive and we celebrate instantaneously. So I have an 8:00 stand up that I attend. And I really have found joy in it because I'm celebrating, I'm watching people do really great things that I wouldn't have known because my job isn't that close to those kinds of things. And then I get into it. I know exactly what I need to get done. And, I do certain things like I write. I love to write, and I evidently have a few things I'd like to say. And so, but that tends to be towards the end of the day. My mojo happens there. And I think that it really becomes what works for you, what really works for you. And, and I also do things like, I decide okay, I want to reach out to my sister today. I haven't spoken to her. So sometimes it's just little things, because it's that give, like I'm giving, hey, how are you? What's happening in your world? So I'm not just caught up in my small universe.
You're saying that nothing positive comes from negativity. That one, I so align with that, and lots of times I want to talk about that just a wee bit, just a wee bit. But, a lot of times I'm accused of being too positive. Peter, nothing deters you. Why are you so positive? And sometimes I don't know. I just am. But, we just are. I think we get up and we look for the positive. And I think what we do is we find that if you feed the positive and if you look at the positive, then new positive, that gets bigger. If you get up in the morning and there's 50% negative and 50% positive, and you only pay attention to the positive, it's going to be 60% positive and 40% negative. The next thing you know, the end of your day is all positive, because that's where you're spending your time. I remember what I used to talk about was the ships coming in, and there's a story, Renie, I just want to wrap. I don't want to get into this, but I got to tell you the story. But the fellow used to go to the ocean every day. He'd look over the ocean, like you're in Laguna Beach right now. You look at the ocean. And one guy was watching him out of an office, and he said, I come down here every day, and for 20 years, you've been walking out here just looking at the ocean. What are you doing? What are you waiting for? And he said, well, I'm waiting for my ship to come in. And he said, well, have you sent any out? And, you and I are sending out ships every day. You don't know, but one day in the middle of all this negativity, a ship comes in. But that was sent out by you 5 years ago, 8 years ago, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, or yesterday. Doesn't matter what was going on in the environment you were living in, you just keep sending ships out. I'm going to just thank you for being a very, very qualified masterclass teacher, and thanking you for your time, your energy, your commitment, and your friendship, Renie. It's very valued.
My father used to say, he used to say to me, baby, in life, you got to bring your good time with you. And it's a beautiful perspective, and to support that, that need for positivity. Positivity is your fuel. So thank you so much for having me.